In this video, I'm going to discuss the difference between the Catholic Bible and the Protestant Bible. Catholic Bible has 7 extra books compared to Protestant Bibles. Now, where does it come from? This comes from a group of books which is called Apocrypha. The word Apocrypha originates from the Greek word secret or hidden, and these books were written between the time of Old Testament period and the New Testament period. That is generally from 400 BC to around 30 BC. This is the time frame. These books were written between this 400 time period, 400 BC to 30 BC, around that time. And it is mostly about the history related to the time from the second temple. The first temple was the Jewish temple was built by Solomon, and this was later destroyed by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. And afterwards, they had the Persian captivity, and when they came back, they built the second temple. And from that time onwards, the history is written in this the parts of the history is written in the apocryphal book. These are the extra books what is there in the Catholic Bible. One is Tobit, Judith, Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Baruch, Maccabees. And in addition to that, in addition to the 7 books, there is a little bit of extra portion to Daniel and yes. Now, the Protestants consider these books as not part of the canon because there are some doctrines which can be derived from these books, which supports the teachings of purgatory, prayers for the dead, salvation by works. So this kind of controversial books titles are there in this books. That's why Protestants generally don't use this extra books. Now, I'm going to bring some explanation or a discussion why this is not used in the by the Protestants. And we are going to look whether these books were part of whether Jesus used these books or the Jews at the time whether they used these books. So my research, my how I got this information is like I looked into one of the authentic Jewish material by Chabad. Chabad is a Orthodox Jewish group, and this is from their website. So Jews don't have these books as part of their Bible. So none of the Jewish synagogues today, they don't consider this apocryphal books. That's not just the 7 books which I mentioned earlier, but there are, in addition to that, there is a couple more books are there. So Jews don't consider this extra books or apocryphal books or the extra 7 books what we find in the Catholic Bible in their Old Testament. So Jews are not using. They don't consider them as divinely inspired, but they use this for their historical books. There are some historical facts in those books, so they use it for extra readings. They use it, and so they don't. It's not divinely inspired, and therefore it is not part of the canon. And even some of the writings in that books are antithetical to the Judaism itself. So they don't consider these books as part of their Bible. Now, when did the Jewish Old Testament canonization happen? The Jewish canon, the Old Testament canon, happened sometime somewhere around 300, 400 or 200 BC. And so they believe that after the book of Malachi, there is no other prophetic books. So from the time of Ezra onwards, there are a group of people, they call it as the men of the great assembly. They did they tried canonizing or compiling the books of the Old Testament, and by the time of Jesus, it was very clear like what all are the books which are divinely inspired or part of the Old Testament and what is not. Now, it's interesting to note that during the Dead, when they found the Dead Sea Scrolls somewhere in 4850, somewhere around that time, some of these apocryphal books were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But even not all books, even though there was like many books in that apocryphal books, some of them, only some of them were taken by the Catholic canon. And for example, the book of Enoch, even though it is quoted in the book of Jude 14 and 15, it was not included in the Catholic Bible. So everything in the Apocrypha was not used by the Catholics, but only few of them, 7 of the books were used by the Catholics in the Catholic. Now, if you look at the Hebrew Bible, like the Jews currently, or from the time of Jesus, or even at the time of Jesus, they had only these books, like they called it the law or the Torah, or some of them call as Pentateuch: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then the entire prophets, they call it as former prophets and latter prophets. Then there is writings, basically Psalms, Proverbs, and Job. Then they call it as 5 rolls: Song of Solomon, Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentation, Esther, and Ecclesiastics. Then there is history: Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles. So these are the 29 books what the Jews consider in their Tanakh, or in their Old Testament, or in their Bible, the Jewish Bible. These are the books they use it, and they don't have the 7 extra books what is there in the Catholic Bible today, like Tobit or Maccabees or any of those things. Like, and Jesus also do not have used or for quoting any of the apocryphal books, and all his quotings are from these books of the. Not all of them were. Not all of the books were quoted by Jesus, but all his quotings are from either some of these books in the Old Testament. He never quoted, at least in the Bible it is not recorded, he quoted. The Jews, even at the time of Jesus, did not use this apocryphal books as part of their worship or for their doctrines or for their theologies. They never used those Bible. Any of the books. They referred the apocryphal books, but not as for any theological reason, but for historical reason, to know about the history and things like that. They have used it. Now, it's interesting to note that Roman Catholic Church did not officially canonize the apocryphal books until AD 1546, or at the Council of Trent. Till that time, they have not officially used this